and we are thrilled to have your beautiful film as part of the festival. You all feel so far. I don't even know where to start. There's so much to say. I'd love to start with Beatrice and with René. How did the two of you find out about Georg and Mollena, and how did you convince them to let you make a film about them?
Can you hear me? No. Okay. I was procrastinating on Facebook when I saw the New York Times article of Georg and Mollena, and I showed it to René, and we were fascinated about their story, and we were more fascinated about the weird comments that people made. So we were like, oh my God, I want to know everything about them. And we were trying to approach them, and we didn't know you're really approachable back then. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? So we went on FetLife and looked for Mollena, and her profile says, like, don't even write me. Like, there's so many people writing me, don't write me. So we're like, okay, let's try Georg, and he was on there too. And we figured, you know, he's a older, white, dominant guy. No one's going to write him. So I wrote him and told him that...
it worked.
It worked pretty well, yeah. I told him that we were interested in making a documentary about that, and he immediately replied. And then I think 2 weeks later, we happened to be in Germany, all of us, and we met in Munich and had like one fun and kind of weird evening where we kind of talked about what we wanted to do, and they immediately said yes. Why they did that, I don't know. You need to say.
Yeah. Georg, Mollena, why did you agree to do this?
I agreed because Mollena had the feeling she can trust them. And I trust Mollena. She's one of the very few persons in the world who I really trust. And they also sent me 2 of the movies which I have done before. And one of them was a movie, a kind of erotic movie about women masturbating and failing the orgasm. And there is also no happy end. They don't get the... And I understood at this moment, somebody who is able to think this is somebody who is really going to the truth. And this movie proved for me that they are amazing human beings. And also the way how they did the movies, I loved the way how they screened and yeah, the form and everything.
Do you have any thoughts?
Sure. Well, it's interesting because I have declined so many invitations to be on so many different television networks and cable shows, up to, through, and including like one of, what is it, Our America with Lisa Ling, and a couple of HBO things, because I never felt good about the people who were going to be telling my story. And what was important to me was that Beatrice and René were like, we really want to share your story. And that resonated for me, you know, versus someone saying, we want to do a piece about this thing that you do. You know, which there are millions of people who do that thing that's not particular, but when someone says your story is interesting, I think it could benefit other folks. That just felt good. And I also have learned over the years to trust my gut very much. And when I met them, I just felt very comfortable hanging out with them, which I don't usually with strange Germans in my hotel room at night that I have never met before. But I was, you know, when I sort of put myself in that position and I said, these people are going to follow you around from anywhere from 6 months to a year. Little did I know, 2.5 years later, we can't shake these bitches. Send help. And the fact that we're still able to hang out and be completely comfortable and still feel like we have this sort of cinematic family that we've created is a remarkable testament to my awesome good instincts. And I'm very grateful to them for that. It's amazing.
This is a question for all 4 of you, but how did you come to an agreement about what could and couldn't be filmed? Because it seems, you know, it wasn't, not everything was included, but quite a lot was. So how did you collectively decide where to draw the line of what was private for your life and what was filmable?
I think when we met, and when we started to film, we just had a talk together, what we want to do. It's like we want to follow you to your everyday life, and we want to document as much as possible. And we said to them, if at any point you think it's too much and we should stay back with the camera, just tell it to us. And for the rest of it, just try to ignore us and let us do what we do, and we try not to interrupt your everyday life. And it was very interesting because I think on day one we got the scenes like Georg is walking through the room naked.
Yes.
So it was like he took it really serious to ignore us. And it was like we were thinking like, oh, okay, we have the great composer naked on camera. Yeah. Great, first day, and from then it went on.
But I just want to add one thing. We agreed, contractually speaking, that they could watch the rough cut, and that they have the right to vouch specific moments or scenes and say like that please don't include that. And when we screened the rough cuts, they watched it and they said, okay, fine, let's keep all of that in. So basically, I think like 90% of the things are in. The other 10% were boring.
I mean, it's incredible the level of trust that you have in that shower. Georg comes out of the shower and walks naked down the hallway. You're like, wow, we are all in here. And
day one, the second hour. We hadn't even settled in yet.
Which is funny because Mollena, it almost feels like you weren't quite there yet because you looked at him and you're like, do you want me to get you some clothes?
Mostly I just hate when people put their bare butts on chairs. Like, I know he had just got out of the shower, but I'm like, put a towel down or something or the thing. But you're right, I was still sort of like, can we ease into this? Or, and it was interesting because I'm actually really very shy when it comes to sharing stuff. And in as much as I'm very much a body positivity activist, I'm still a human being who's sitting there going, oh my God, but that roll of fat is just like that thing, and I'm still criticizing myself. And I remember there was a whole thing we were discussing, like, well, if we have sex, are we gonna film it? And I was like, please God, don't film me having sex. So the whole time I'm gonna be like, I'm being filmed having sex. Just not a porn star. And then what was hilarious and ironic is like they had our honeymoon, our second honeymoon house, mic'd as shit. We would like, there were mics and cameras and everything everywhere. It was like, what is that show? Like Temptation House or Violation Island or what is it? What is it called? And like we're finally like we actually like did it and we're fucking and I'm like they're gonna capture it. It's gonna be here it is. It's now this is forever. This is the sex that will be caught forever. And it turned out that day they had cut everything because they wanted us to have some privacy. Aww. And so I was like, you blew it! That was your chance, Germans.
Your moment.
Speaking about presenting intimate things in public, I think it's not such a problem to go naked from the shower. Much more exhibitionistic for a composer is to allow somebody make a movie while a work is produced. And until today I'm surprised that I allowed them to do this. And there's at least one composer, or he was here, now he is here, I missed one left, and I think Georgia will agree to allow somebody watch while we write our music. This is even more as it would be to allow them to see how we love our partner. Because this is really, and it was not dirty, but it also made clear how these two filmmakers were able to make themselves unvisible or unperceivable. I proved in this very nice story when you arrived and one day and have made an arrangement with Mollena, and Mollena still slept, and I said, okay, come in, sit down, goodbye. And I didn't even offer them a coffee or a water or anything. And after 2 or 3 hours, Mollena got up and asked what's happening. That was they're still here waiting, and it's because I consequently could ignore them. And I think this is the hugest compliment you can make a documentary film.
To a documentary filmmaker, yes, absolutely. To be a fly on the wall is the objective. René and Beatrice, I would love to ask you guys about how you came up with the overall structure of the film. I love the way that you incorporate, there's that one animation sequence of Mollena's childhood. There's those very playful moments when we are introduced to both Mollena and Jorge, where they have, Georg, sorry, I keep doing that. I don't know
Oh my
why
God,
I
I'm
want
calling
you
him
to
Jorge
be Spanish.
forever now.
Sorry, Georg. I called you Jorge. It's a different name completely. I'm sorry, Georg.
She said Jorge instead of Georg.
As long as you don't say Williams instead of Friedrich, everything is okay.
So when we're introduced to Georg and to Mollena, and you write notes about them around there, and there's this playful levity to the film, but also really slick graphics, and it's very just polished throughout. You have performative elements that are, you know, archival footage of Mollena, but also new footage of the two of them creating. How did you go about putting this all together?
I don't know. We just.
You guys got to make up something.
Okay, wait.
Like,
Give me a second. Well, it was very intentional. I mean, first of all, we tried to grab as many things that we could find in terms of archival material. There were a lot of people, and a lot of them are in the room, like Substantia, for example, who did the amazing photos that are on the wall, that were so kind to give us all their material, and Dixie from Body Storytelling as well. And we loved all this material. We filmed some of Georg's performances, like the one in the beginning where he opens Elbphilharmonie, which was like a huge deal. And apart from that, I think the film and the structure itself very naturally came together. We didn't sit there like and thought about how we're going to do it, because there was such it fell into itself, I think. The only thing, let me just add one thing, that we did intentionally is the beginning. There's a little performance in the beginning, and we start with Mollena staring at the audience, because that's our fuck you voyeurs who come to a movie called The Artist and the Pervert, so you can see pervy stuff and be like, ooh, look at the perverts. The perverts are actually looking back at you. And it's also intentional that we don't start with Georg, but we start with Mollena, because we wanted to start with a woman, a black woman, a submissive woman, all these people that are never the tired ones, but the ones that hardly get represented in film. So that was our like tiny little statement right there.
We were also really lucky to document exactly this year of their life. It started with the article in the Times where we get to know them. And from there, we started immediately to film, because it was fresh out there, the story, and followed them. And it was also we were really lucky that in exactly this year they made Hyena, which is like where the two artists and the two perverts came together and made a piece. Yeah. And that was, for the storytelling, it was just perfect.
One more question before we throw it out to the audience. Mollena, you and Georg have done so much to shine the light on the kink community and to help people feel embraced and accepted. And you've also created some very compelling content together. What is next for the two of you?
I don't know. So the thing is that no, I do know. I do know what I'm talking about. Hyena is going to be a trilogy, actually. There will be, because I realized people were like, well, then what happens? Because Hyena ends with me like leaving rehab. And people like, clearly some other shit has gone down. What happened after you started talking to a monster that you don't even know if it's there, what's going on? And so what we have in the works currently is to do the next two pieces. You know, Hyena sort of like, here's the problem. And then the second part, you know, in short, is how do you live with the problem? And then the third piece is how do you solve the problem, you know, of being an addict and being someone who is in recovery. And Georg will, of course, write the music for those things. I think the second piece is, the working title is Ganesha. And that's what that's about. And it will have, I think, a larger ensemble. And we have, is that the one the music for Break is doing? Can we tell them? I don't know if we can talk about it. I just might have spilled too many beans.
Nobody say anything.
No, it's just nobody say anything. And then the final piece will be myself and I think maybe like a string quartet. So it sort of brings it back into the personal, and I talk about how you move on and live with demons.
Yeah, and we have some projects of opera, but these are not fixed, and it's very, very difficult to find support for these operas.
Yeah, so if you know someone who produces operas, please
No,
get us on
the view.
Facebook.
It must be somebody who is not only able to produce an opera, but also to invite a gamelan ensemble and Caribbean percussion group and New Orleans funeral and jazz band. And
I have plans.
but we are very strongly taking these ideas, and also there exists plenty of collaboration, which is not really in that way that you can see it, because we are speaking together, and she helps me to find the right decisions, which projects I shall accept and which not, and it's really, yeah. Our next project will start this Wednesday when we are flying to southern Italy, where we'll make a music for the city of Matera, which is the capital of Europe. This music will be in the city.
It's not the capital of Europe. It's
cultural capital of Europe.
It's a 2019 cultural capital of Europe.
And
it's a thing. It's a thing.
We will be there together, and I'm sure that she will help me to create this thing in the best way.
That's my job.
Thank you so much. So does anyone in the audience have any questions for our guests? So many people. Okay, right here.
Hi.
Hi.
For those of us that are friends on Facebook, is there a supercut of the stuff Faustmeister says that will be available?
Oh,
I actually,
so the question is, can we get a supercut of the Spousmeister?
yeah, there's for those who don't know, Georg oftentimes, I don't even say it's misspeaks, he says stuff that's funny or amusing, and I post it on Facebook. And people kept saying you should make a book of it, and for our wedding, I put it together as a gift for the wedding guests. And I'm now 3 years in, so I'm supposed to apparently publish an entire book of all the wacky shit that Georg has said over the years. And I actually should. I think it would make a mint. Everyone has said it's like the best bathroom book they've ever seen in their entire lives. Like, people will come to their homes and they'll just be in the bathroom and they're like, and they're like, what the hell's going on in there? Oh, they must have read Georg Friedrich's little quotes. Like, for example, when we first started dating, at one point we were sitting at the dinner table and he jumped up and ran into the hallway, and I was like, what's going on? Are you okay? And he's like, oh, I have I had an air poop. And I was like, oh, yeah. That makes sense. I was like, on Facebook, like, la, la, la. This is hilarious. And everyone's like, farts are now air poops. That's just how they are. And so, yes, there's hundreds of these over the years.
That's brilliant. Right there and right there.
When you guys first got together, Georg, you said that you wanted her to be your muse, but at what point did that become a collaboration of two artists?
It took a long time until I understood the quality of Mollena as an artist. I visited her teaching. This was amazing. I heard her storytelling. This was also amazing. But the fact that she is really an artist in language it took longer for me to get it. One thing was for me absolutely clear. I'm not one of those composers or those artists who want to collaborate with their partner because they want to collaborate with their partners. And at that moment, when I understood she is really a great artist, I asked her, please, let's do something together. I cannot really tell the date when it has been.
It was probably over a year. It was like a year plus in, because that's when, I will say that when he heard me do the story of Hyena on Snap Judgment, which is a podcast on NPR, and I said, well, you can listen to this thing that I did, whatever. And that was, I think, the spark, because after listening to that, he came out, put his headphones down, and he's crying because he's hella emo about like everything. And he said, this would make an amazing, he's like, I want to write music for this. I want you to tell the story with my music. And I was like, okay, so sure, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's gonna happen. He's just all like moved and shit right now. But what he said was that he felt the music coming while he was listening to it. And that's, are you disagreeing or saying?
No, but I would like to finish this sentence which you interrupted at the end of the movie. Because when you listen to this excerpts, you might believe that the music just illustrates the text. But when you look at the score, you will see that all of these illustrations are accidental. Because it's composed in complete freedom, and that was a challenge with the composer. I have a soloist. Imagine you're a composer, you write a violin concerto, and you don't have an idea how long the violin soloist will play. And I had to manage these problems, and until I had to understand that this is an artistic challenge, and I'm very glad that I did it, and we will continue with this.
We have time for one more question. We can go on all night right there.
Mollena, have you ever met Georg's mother?
Yes, it did. It actually went fine because we had a plan. Can I tell about? I am Mrs. Haas the Fourth, and Mrs. Haas the Third was also not white. And there had been an experience where their daughter, who was half white and half Japanese, went to the house, and Grandma was fine with the child, and everything was really great until
the first time they saw.
First time, until she started talking about the yellow race and the problems and race mixing and everything else. And Georg was like, "Okay, congratulations, this is the last time you'll see your granddaughter," you know. Which actually impressed me, because so many people sort of compromise and kowtow to the family thing and kind of ignore people's bullshit. And so I said, okay, look.
Sorry, I have to protect my daughter. Sorry.
What? No. I know, but a lot of people don't, sir. A lot of people don't. Raise your hand if you've have been the victim of family bullshit when you could have been protected by someone who didn't really stand up for you. You know, this is a common thing. You did an amazing thing there. So yeah, you. So I said, look, if she goes into some bullshit, I'm just going to rise and leave. She's a little old lady. I'm not going to fight with her. I'm just going to go, and you have 5 minutes to extract yourself, and then we leave, and then that's it. And so he's like, okay, great. So the interesting thing was that we decided we were going to also have a time limit, because apparently she's good for about an hour and a half, and then she really kind of can't help herself, you know. And so I said, okay, you know, we'll do this. And what was fascinating is that she was so busy telling me what a loser Georg was that she never really had time to talk about how horrible black people were. Which is amazing. I'm sitting there and she's like, well, you know, his wives and so many and his failed marriages, and why would you marry someone who's been married? I was like, well, you know, I feel like he's rehearsed this. I feel like he's worked his way up to it, and now we're ready. And then I'm standing there going, this bitch, what a bitch. How would you sit there? I'm like, he's right here. He can hear you. So it actually wasn't epic. you know. And I was just glad that I could have the opportunity to say literally and realistically, like, my mother-in-law's a Nazi. When people like to use that as sort of like a little joke, and I'm like, no, really, an actual Nazi. But she makes a nice cake. Makes a nice cake. It was moist.
That's
it was,
cool.
you know.
Her bacon is amazing too.
Yeah, I know. I can't talk shit because most Austrian pastry is dry as fuck. Like they don't. They make everything nasty and then they give you whipped cream to put on it. Like that makes it better. I'm like, just make that shit moist. What the fuck is wrong with you? But hers was good. It was good.
I'm so sorry, we have to wrap this up. I can sit here all night. Absolutely. I mean, very much. Mollena and Georg, thank you so much for your bravery and your honesty and for your respect and love for one another and your willingness to share that with the world. And René and Beatrice, sorry. I'm having such a hard time tonight. I'm really, Jorge, thanks for coming. René and Beatrice, thank you for your beautiful film, the U.S. premiere of The Artist and the Pervert, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.